This is The Healthy Healer, where true voice is your medicine. This is where we help doctors and other healers navigate through the challenging times by learning from the best minds in the healing industry. Laugh, cry, and be surprised. It's entertainment, education, and inspiration so you can continue to be the unique and amazing healer you were destined to be. Welcome to humanity. Welcome to The Healthy Healer with Dr. Fred.
Hello, everybody, and good morning. It's Dr. Fred, and welcome to another amazing episode of The Healthy Healer. Today, we have an amazing guest. As usual, we're supporting people or we're helping people get their message out who have found their way to being a healer in a unique pathway. This is no exception today. This is somebody who has had her own unique pathway of getting to be somebody who's making a huge difference with a huge group of people using a skill set that she earned on real time. This is not somebody who learned all these skills in school and then had to go back to the books to bring it, like how to help people in public using particular, like well-defined therapies and interventions. This is somebody who went through her own life changes, healed herself, and then is bringing some of those healing skills and blessings to the world around her. Today we have Victoria Craig. And I'm very excited to learn a little bit more about her along with you as we find out what is it for Victoria that allows her to call herself a feminine embodiment coach and mentor, as well as somebody who is a trauma-informed and sensitive plant medicine and breathwork facilitator. So those are big words, big names, and really big responsibilities. So let's dive right in and see what Victoria is, who she is, and how she got to be who she is now, and what direction we're headed with her. So Victoria, thank you so much for being on The Healthy Healer. It's great to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's great. It's really wonderful to have people like you on the show. Although I'm really tempted to say there isn't very many people like you. So let's talk a little bit about what separates who you are. And we're going to do that by asking the question that often dominates the whole beginning of The Healthy Healer. It's a simple 9-letter question. The question is, Victoria Craig, who are you?
Oh, wow. That's a big question.
Nine letters, three-letter words. It's not that big a deal, and it just blows people away. It's so
funny. Oh, it does. Honestly, I'm just a woman that's still on my own deep healing and spiritual journey I've turned my pain into purpose to support other people to heal too. My passion is in my work, and also in seeing what I am capable of in this life. So constantly, I'm on a journey of constantly unpeeling the layers to really learn more. Who am I? Every time I go deeper, I'm opening to more authenticity. And this is why I think sometimes people find it really hard to answer that question of who am I? Because sometimes it's, do we ever really know? Because these versions of us, as we evolve, we keep shifting or we keep changing into a different version where we're coming more closer to our home and closer to our soul's authenticity that wants to be seen and shine in this world.
Yeah. So as we cut into new layers, the whole idea of who you are shifts minute by minute, day by day, for sure. And depending on where you are today, that does not in any way dictate or inform who you might be tomorrow or who you might even be 1 hour from now. Yeah. Because we're constantly digging in and finding out a little bit more. Those of us who are doing any kind of in-depth work, any kind of growth and development, are finding ourselves changing at a rapid rate. I'm not even the same person that woke up this morning. I've shifted several times between waking up and now, and it's only 8 in the morning here. I really understand what you're saying. So I'd really love to hear a little bit more. Your passion is in your work. Let's talk a little bit about, I know a little bit about your history that got you into being this embodiment coach, but I'd love for you to share with our listeners who you are and what your history is that has led you to being the healer that you are now.
Of course. So my journey to stepping into this space, into the healing space, into the role, has really been from moving through my own challenges and trauma and pain. And there's multiple past painful experiences, as most of us have, but 9 years ago, I lost my mother very suddenly, and actually prior to that, I was in the fitness and the bodybuilding world and the competing world, and everything about me was focused on the outside world, or focused on my body and how I looked, and I was really pushing myself to limits that are not healthy for any woman. I had eating disorders, I had body dysmorphia, I found myself getting entangled in abusive relationships, which I was actually in an abusive relationship when my mother passed away to someone that was also coaching me as well, which is another unhealthy dynamic in coaching me in the fitness and the competition world. And at the same time that my mother passed away, very shortly afterwards, within a couple of weeks, it got very challenging, and I left him. And 2 days later, I found out I was pregnant, and I went through a termination, and it really took me to a rock bottom that I never even thought was possible. In 6 weeks, I'd lost my mum, I'd left my fiance, and I went through termination of a pregnancy. And I really spiraled into shame and depression. And then there came a point where it's time to turn my life around. Like I've become suicidal at this point. I really thought about taking my own life, and it was like, okay, well, you either go or you stay, and you may start to make some changes. And I wasn't particularly conscious then or awake at all. My changes then were very much focused on the path that we have been conditioned with. So for me, then I also had quite a lot of debt, and I moved back with my father, and I ended up working 5 jobs, and I was working in the corporate space. I was working in the fitness space. I was doing Pilates therapy. I was a sports massage therapist. I was working in a restaurant. At weekends, I was training personal trainers and fitness instructors. It was still like, how much can I achieve? How much can I do? And I was bypassing as well through that, because always keeping busy. I was busy 24/7. I was bypassing, I guess, some of the deeper emotions and the trauma from that period. And I was also sort of stopping myself from actually having joy and pleasure and happiness and fun in my life, because all I did was work. And I stayed on that path for a little while, and I made some really great shifts in my life. And then it was like time to get a mortgage, and I just kept getting knocked back. And then I got one, and everything fell through. The apartment fell through 6 months later. I lost a load of money, and I was like, something is telling me this is not meant to be for me. It's a different path. And I'd had a really deep calling to go to India. So I went to India to do my second yoga teacher training. I'd always had a dream of training in yoga in India. And when I was there, I was like, this is it, man. This is not, I'm due for a different path. So I left the work that I was doing and started to set up my own business as a Pilates yoga teacher, fitness, health coach, which took me to India. I spent 8 months living in India. Pre-pandemic happened, and I came back to the UK. Actually,
you were in India when the pandemic happened, then, and then you flew back to UK in those first months in 2020.
Yeah, I stayed to begin with. Actually, my intuition told me to stay in India. I was pretty happy, and it wasn't as bad as everyone. Police were beating people on sticks if they're out on scooters, and there was a lot coming in from the outside world. If you need to be home, you don't have health insurance, we don't know what this is. So I ended up getting one of the government recreation flights back to the UK, and I really spiraled when I was back there. I found myself trying to find somewhere to live while I was during the pandemic, which was really not easy at all with the world being shut down. And I actually got quite sick, and part of this being trauma, past trauma, and things that hadn't been fully dealt with. So I started to have quite severe autoimmune issues. Alopecia, my hair, I lost 3/4 of my hair, I had bald patches, I had severe gastrointestinal issues, migraines, chronic fatigue, pelvic inflammatory disease, a bowel problem, you name it. The list goes on, amenorrhea. When one thing goes, it all like a chain reaction throughout the body. And I was just really isolated, very alone. And I just decided I can't stay here anymore. The only place that was open was Mexico. I booked a one-way ticket. And when I got to Mexico, I really dived into the feminine embodiment and also a lot deeper into plant medicine. I didn't mention prior to all of this, in between my first trip to India and second trip, I went to Peru and did an ayahuasca retreat, which again really opened my eyes and changed my life in many ways. And then whilst being in Mexico, I really just stepped into the healing space and experiencing myself working with shamans, mentors, teachers, coaches, trying all different modalities, tools, and everything that I could to heal. And then ultimately what has come off the back of that, in what I see, the work has started as a health coach. It's shifted a lot along the way. And ultimately what I did was put everything together that has really helped me on my own journey, which I think is what a lot of us do. We create our own method from the things that have helped us, and then the people that resonate with that come drawn into us. And for me, that's plant medicine, whether that's in a retreat in ceremony or whether that's actually working with medicines and microdosing and seeing benefits and effects from that. Breath work, conscious connected breath work journeys, the being able to access our subconscious mind, our emotional body, our pain body, our limbic brain, and really start to tap into, release what's been stored, but also tap into the wisdom of the body. And then the pieces around feminine embodiment. We're in a world, as I was when after losing my mum, it was fully into that masculine energy. I've always got to be doing, going, pushing, forcing, outputs, chasing success, and being able for women to start to drop back into that feminine energy where we're connecting with our body, we're connecting with our cycle, we're connecting with our hormones, our emotions, is deeply healing. So that's my story within all of that as well. Being on this journey and doing a lot of work around my own trauma. I actually had a sexual assault in Mexico, and then that opened a can of worms of, okay, this wasn't the first time. I had repressed memories start to come through. I feel I've experienced a lot, and most people that come in and work with me is because I resonate with a lot with what they're going through, or I've been through what they're going through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really important to find a way to have our traumatic experiences utilized effectively to help others. When we can find that golden pathway, life takes on a whole new meaning. And it sounds like you were really able to do that. I know that you like starting this part of the story with that triad of events. I guess it happened a few years ago where your mom died, and then you had your fiance breaking up with this abusive fiance, and then having the terminated pregnancy. And this just launched you into either you live or die. And then if you're going to live, you're going to have to change the pathway that you're on, and then really actually dig into changing the pathway that you were on. The idea that you were on a pathway that you could live and be entirely miserable was intolerable. And that's where suicidality tops in. Like, maybe it'd be better if I was gone. And instead, you did what you did in this way by finding yourself a courageous pathway into becoming a healer. But ultimately, you didn't know. It sounds like you didn't know you were going to be a healer. Instead, you knew that you needed to be healed. And you were off to India. There was something calling you there for yoga, and you went there, and then actually went back. And then after that, found yourself back in England after this lockdown phenomena, and that wasn't going to work for you as well. So off to Mexico is where you went for the next trip. And in between there, having done a little bit of ayahuasca, you learned that you were a different person than you thought you were, and that the world is a different place than you might have thought it was, and that this combination of who you are and who the world is could lead to a new pathway where you could be a genuine healer. And it seems in Mexico is where you really put the roots down to become the healer you now claim to be, in the area of feminine embodiment and in the area of facilitating plant medicine journeys and helping women find their truest self by resonating with them through the trauma you've experienced, as well as the trauma that they're experiencing, where they come in and they feel harmonized by who you are as a person, that if they've gone through something, more than likely, or often maybe more often than not, you've gone through enough of the same things that you can actually resonate with their powerful experiences that they're having post-traumatically. Is that a pretty close overview of what you said?
Yeah, very much. And actually, especially when I look at the retreats that I run, the Soul Rising retreats, these are really what I put together there. And it was a real aha moment that I had not so long ago. It was everything I wished I'd had on my journey. And I've had all of these pieces at different times and different experiences with different people. And I'd also, on my healing journey, I've experienced trauma. I've experienced, that I told you I had a sexual assault. That was by a healer. I've experienced being in ceremony and plant medicine where I wasn't held in a safe and a trauma sensitive way that re-traumatized me. So really, for me, it's putting together everything that I wish that I had. I think if I could go to my retreat, I would absolutely love to. And there's such an importance when we're working with trauma to understand how it impacts the body and how it can show up in people's reactions, triggers, how the nervous system, especially when I'm working in any kind of ceremony, whether that's breath work, whether that's plant medicine, is how is someone's nervous system presenting through these challenging experiences? Yeah, it can tell us a lot. And what do they need? We work with ayahuasca, for example, being in the dark, left on your own, for someone that has a history of deep trauma and has maybe never been held in their pain. Actually, maybe they need to have someone sit with them and hold them and pour into them and remind them that they're safe and tell them that they're loved and tell them they're doing amazing because they've not experienced that before. So it's how do we amplify the experience that they can have through a medicine, through any kind of ceremony, bodywork, breathwork, medicine, to really help them come back into that felt sense of safety inside, but also to give them something that maybe they have never experienced. And so many of us have never allowed ourselves, or it's been foreign to us, to be held, to actually be held in a really vulnerable way, to be held in our grief, to be held in our pain, our fear, our guilt, because there is still shame around vulnerability. There's still shame around saying, no, I'm not okay. There's still shame around crying, especially if you're from the UK. The British, we are very shut down and suppressed. So really, for me, it's passion and purpose, being able to provide these safe and these sensitive spaces for women, and maybe a slightly different experience than that they would have anywhere else. And that's not me in any way saying anyone else does it in a wrong way. We just do it differently.
Yeah, so it sounds in your work as a facilitator and as a guide and as a mentor, as essentially a producer of safe access to our core self is what you're really speaking to. When you say plant medicine, I've heard you mention ayahuasca a couple times. Is that your medicine of choice when you're speaking to plant medicine, or do you use others as well? Or find yourself
in retreats, ayahuasca. I do have a very deep relationship with mushrooms, with psilocybin as well. But in retreats, it's ayahuasca. We also work with kambo, which is not obviously a psychedelic medicine, but it is psychoactive, very big physical, and can be a big emotional detox of the body. And then we have accompanying medicines, rape and sananga, that we use to support within ceremony. Neither of those either are psychedelic. And then in addition, the breath is a medicine too, like working with breath work. We have womb healing. We have a traditional Mexican temazcal ceremony. But I'd say the big calling for people coming into retreats is often the ayahuasca.
Ayahuasca, yeah. And I'm very familiar with kambo as well. And what is it that had you stop using kambo? It sounds like it's something you used to do, but you're no longer doing that.
No, we are still working with kambo, and I still personally work with it myself. I actually sat with a microdose of it this week, and that is something I'm really loving in my own journeys at the moment, is microdosing, having more gentle experiences. But yes, we work with kambo in the retreat, but we just have one ceremony, which is right at the beginning of the retreat, and then making sure there's adequate time to really nourish and refuel the body, because we have to be aware of both kambo and ayahuasca are purging medicines.
For sure.
So we really have to be aware of how much they're purging. How is their body responding? How are we keeping them hydrated? How are we making sure they've got the minerals and the nutrients in their body so the whole experience is safe? But next year, I haven't really figured out exactly what I'm doing with retreats yet next year, but there's a calling to do some different styles of retreats. Potentially I might pull kambo out of the retreats while we work with ayahuasca and have something more gentle in there. I have a calling to maybe do some retreats with mushrooms as well, because lots of people are very called to experience plant medicine, but ayahuasca can be the one that can feel really scary, and it can be a very intense experience, and it's not always the right thing for everyone to do. I really feel with ayahuasca, you need to have a calling. It's not something, same with all plants, it's not something we do because it's becoming trendy now, or everyone else is doing it, or my friend's done it. It's like having that calling to it. But the experience with ayahuasca and the experience with psilocybin is very different.
Yeah.
You know, we can have some very deep transformative experiences with both, but mushrooms could be maybe a little bit gentler. And I have a calling to have a number of different styles of retreats, even some without plant medicine at all, where it's more maybe breath work and embodiment and play and fun and joy, because that can be missing from the healing journey, right? We go so deep on like our inner world and constantly healing trauma and unpeeling layers. Well, when do I forget to have fun?
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Yeah, we often, the intensity and the realizations or the epiphanies or the shifts in our psyche that occur when we go on these journeys is so intense that it seems like fun is in a different realm. And a lot of times you get some joy from even just surviving the journey. In some cases, you're not even sure that you've had a positive experience with kambo or with ayahuasca in particular, where it can be, even in the midst of it, pretty unpleasant. It can be pretty unpleasant in the learning capacity, in the learning aspect of the journey. And I have some experience of having it being extremely unpleasant and just getting through it being the actual thrill. Okay, the shit is over and I get to be the guy I am after that kind of journey. I get to walk away and reconstruct how I put my life together to respond and fulfill what I learned when I was in the throes of the ayahuasca. So with the ayahuasca and the music and the purging and all of it that's associated with it, it's not, I went to a ceremony, I forgot what they call it, you probably know, where we actually moved and danced during it's a Brazilian ceremony. During the actual ceremony, we actually moved and danced during the actual ayahuasca experience, which was totally new for me. In most cases that we had just been sitting on a pillow, but that wasn't this case. And in any manner, you should not, it doesn't seem like you enter those kind of ceremonies hoping to party it up. It's not about that. It's not about the calling is there. I've heard people say, I tell people not to use ayahuasca unless there's a calling and then use it. It's like that. Like the actual answer is no, stay away from it unless you're called to use it, in which case.
It's just that your intuition tells you if you have that calling. It's just ultimately going in with the right reasons, the right intentions.
Exactly.
And not because it's trendy, not because there's lots of people doing it now. And an ayahuasca journey can be very challenging. It can be incredibly beautiful as well. The amount of laughter and joy and pleasure that I personally have experienced and have seen other people experience in ceremony as well. But often, and not always, but often to get there, I really feel she is in the grandmother ayahuasca. She really can show us the whole range of human emotions. And this is often what we see from where they come out of the retreat. Like, I didn't realize I could feel that much. Like, I've experienced every human emotion. It really shows us like going down here into the pain, into the grief, into the sadness, into the anger, whatever it is that's been held and we've not allowed ourselves to go there. Often what happens once you go there, and maybe the purge comes, which whatever way that is, whether that's being sick, whether that's through noise, whether that's through shaking, whether that's through laughing, the other end of it is you get shown the joy and the happiness and the love and the gratitude and the bliss that you can feel that is actually available for all of us. And that, one of the biggest things I have found myself with ayahuasca, I always say she taught me how to feel again, because I was so shut down and so suppressed. And actually what she gave me was safety within my emotions, that I can go into this grief and I'm not going to die. It's not going to swallow me up. Actually, there's safe and healthy ways for me to release anger. I was always one of those people, if someone said, do you get angry? No, I don't get angry. It's just not something I experience. Actually, it was covered by other emotions and other actions. I just never allowed myself to go there because of the good girl conditioning. And as a woman, that's not ladylike. That's not what I should do. People will not accept me if I experience anger. But it's actually, I can express anger, and there's lots of healthy ways of doing it without me turning it into aggression, without me projecting it onto someone else. And that's something as well that the medicine showed me.
Yeah, exactly. I appreciate what you're saying. And the pathway with grandma and mama ayahuasca, it's funny for people who don't understand why she gets the name she as mama ayahuasca or grandma ayahuasca. Once you do ayahuasca, you get exactly why she's a she. I mean, it's not papa ayahuasca at all. It's mama ayahuasca.
Yeah.
And the learning experience, as you mentioned, I kind of have images of her again in her multi faces and how she shows up inside of the journey and the messages that she has, and challenging me to challenge me so that I can learn new ways and deconstruct what thought processes that have now become obsolete. But yeah, really amazing. Let's see. Let's talk a little bit about how people can find you. If someone wants to work with you, go on these journeys with you, or maybe just have a conversation and consider re-embodiment or embodiment therapies, maybe responding to some form of trauma they're experiencing regularly, either chronically or acutely and repetitively. There's a lot of forms of trauma out here that women are experiencing. It sounds like most of your work or nearly all your work is with women. Is that fair to say?
Majority, yeah. I think there will be an expansion next year, especially with medicines. We've had a lot of people ask for it, but at the moment, it's my work is predominantly towards women, at least in group setting. And yeah, in any kind of group setting, I am open to supporting men one-on-one space, but I am a woman and I understand women.
Exactly. Understood. That's where you should be. I understand that makes sense, and your story makes sense that your primary target population, if you will, are women and traumatized women. And again, when you really think about it, women collectively are often traumatized. There's a lot of trauma inside of being a woman. It's a world that's packed with trauma for all of us, but it seems like a woman's trauma is a different form of trauma, and being at the receipt of it, whether it's sexual or physical or emotional or simply internal, the trauma can be rich and chronically damaging. So it sounds like you take that on with vigor and really get people to the other side so that they can get a life that actually works. Is that fair to say?
Yeah,
Okay.
That's pretty spot on. Thank you.
Perfect. All right, Victoria, how do people find you? Where should they go if they want to begin to work with you or follow you?
Okay, so you can connect with me. You can find me on my website, which is just I am Victoria, Craig spelled CIAIG.com. On the website as well, you will see the Soul Rising retreat. So all of the information for our retreats on there. Our next one is coming up in August in Mexico. And then also through Instagram is the platform where I share the most about my work and support and tools. And I love just being able to hop into the DMs and have conversations with people as well. For me, through Instagram, there's more of a personal connection. So my Instagram is just I am Victoria Craig, and I also support women in person in retreats, but also in the online space. Obviously, I'm not going to be taking anyone through an ayahuasca journey in the online space with breathwork, with embodiment, with microdosing. So yeah, that's really the way to connect with me. Instagram's a great platform, and if you do hop over and give me a follow, just drop me a message and say hello, because I do love to connect. It's a space for community.
And where are you in the world right now?
I'm in Mexico at the moment, and I will be staying here definitely for the next few months, but I'm having some thoughts of maybe going off somewhere else for a little while.
Where would be? Do you know where that would be? Where the colony is?
I'll be considering Europe, maybe Ibiza. My best friend who supports some retreats as well, she lives out there and she's like family to me. So that's an option. But then also I have callings to go back to India. I have callings to go back to Peru. I even met someone here last night that was telling me about a place near Cusco that he has in Peru, where with like 5 apartments, and the cost of living is just ridiculously low in the mountains. And so I honestly don't know. And I think for me, I'm definitely here through till September because I have a retreat. And every time I try and plan something, it never goes to plan. So I'm like, just surrender, and I'm going to allow the universe to just guide me.
Isn't that true? Exactly. It's been a pleasure to learn about you, Victoria. I hope you've had a good time, and I hope our listeners have appreciated you for all that you do and all that you are and who you stand for and who you are as a woman and a woman's healer, and your own journey and how it really bolsters up who you've become and how you do your work. So thank you for being on The Healthy Healer. You certainly personified what it means to be a healthy healer, and it's been an honor and pleasure to have you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been great. I've loved chatting to you.
You're welcome. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to the end. Totally appreciate you as always, and look forward to hearing from you. Feel free to share a comment, and if you get the urge, go ahead and subscribe, because that's what helps people like you get messages like this. Thanks again for being here, and as usual, we'll catch you on the flip side. Bye for now.